Chapter 5. The Blackening. One idea held by many of the psychological greats is that inner work must be done before one can be who we really are. Jung called it the process of individuation, Maslow self-actualization. And it must be clear from what I have written that I share that view. Nothing like sucking up to the greats, a process apparently well known to the alchemists, who called it the nigredo, Latin for the blackening, in which, as it were, Dr Jekyll confronts Mr Hyde, ultimately realizing that they are part of each other. The Christian Church knew this, but it is now rare for the confession to be taken seriously. The word sin being treated with little respect and regarded as part of a formula uttered at the beginning of the sacred rite of communion, the beginning of the spiritual journey from the world outside to the holiness of the altar rail. However, sidestepping the religious parallels and staying in the familiar territory of psychodynamics, the work involved, for me, a recognition of the difference between good and bad behaviour. As far as such values were concerned, I started with a clean sheet, having no concept of such a distinction, being totally self-centred and having no realisation of the importance of the way I behaved to other people. As a GP, I found myself curiously reluctant to ask for help from a consultant. It took me a long time to understand that this was because I was afraid I would be found out. The root of this ridiculous behaviour was the inner conviction that I was a useless, no-good person, and I spent much time trying to prevent people from finding this out. I began to think about the way I judged myself and found that my judgment of me was not based on any objective assessment, but just something I felt. Whereas my judgment of other people seemed to have nothing to do with their ability, but was only concerned with characteristics like friendliness, sincerity, humour. I slowly came to realise that if I judged myself the way I judged other people, I didn't come out too badly. I can remember making a conscious decision to stop having double standards. In retrospect, I can say that this was a turning point in my confrontation with my bipolar gene and my recurrent depressions. Back in the early 1950s, I wanted to find out whether diseases had particular voices, and so I recorded surgery consultations to see if I could detect any patterns. The trouble about that was that I was recording myself as well as my patients, and it became perfectly obvious to me that I was making a great play for my patients' approval. I had an approval hunger. I was so nice, so charming, that listening to the recordings made me feel sick. I was being dishonest, talking to my patients in a way I hoped they would like, rather than saying anything that might displease them. The recordings reflected back to me my social face, my persona. I did not like it, and I discovered later, to my amusement, that I had stopped being that nice Dr Tait and had started being that honest Dr Tait. I discovered that I had a short fuse, that I was a bully and expected my patients to do exactly what I told them, and got very cross if they didn't. It took a long time to deal with this tyrannical part of me, but I discovered, when I was investing relaxation procedures, that I couldn't be angry and relaxed at the same time, so a quick relaxation routine would let the anger drain out of me. I think the result of this discipline was to teach me to be patient. From what I have said, it will be clear that in the process of the blackening was very haphazard, but here I have some questions I found myself asking. Do I have an approval hunger? Do I suffer from niceness? Do I avoid doing things because I feared who fail? Do I have command resistance? In other words, do I procrastinate and not do the things that need to be done? If so, why? Am I a good listener? Do I talk too much? Do I stop and think or act before thinking? Am I too good at being sorry for people? Am I a good rescuer? Am I sorry for myself? Am I a good victim? Do I boss my kids around, or anybody else for that matter? These are some of the questions I found myself having to answer when trying to answer the question, do I behave badly or properly? Because the fact was that I came out of childhood with no idea of the difference between good and bad. When I thought about it, it seemed to me that bad behaviour either made people unhappy or ill, and good behaviour made them happy, and this definition has served me very well. Sinful behaviour has been described as behaviour that separates you from God. And if God equals love equals friendship and affection, possibly a big if, perhaps the religious and my definitions are not too far apart. It took me a long time to realise that my assessment of myself as being, in Burns' terminology, not okay, was due to a lack of TLC in the critical time, which I think is very early in a child's life.